Hello and welcome to Spencer's Library. I'm Claudia and I'm about to read The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins for the very first time in my life. I've never read any of the Hunger Games books, I've not seen any of the films, I'm as unspoiled as you can be about this book. Where have I been living? Under a rock, clearly. All I know about this book is that the main character is called Katniss and that she's good at archery. And that it's some sort of dystopian young adult novel. Oh, and someone says, may the odds be ever in your favour. So with that pre-knowledge, I'm going to dive into this book and then give you my reaction after every single chapter. That means this video is going to be full of spoilers because I will not be holding back. There might also be some swearing. I guess it depends on how dramatic this book is going to end up being. Without further ado, let's get into the first chapter. Wow. What a start to the story. First we're introduced to the whole world, I guess, in a really efficient, short way. So this is some sort of a dystopian scenario and the main character is a poacher by the looks of it. I'm not keen, generally speaking, on first-person present tense narration, but it seems to be working just fine. Let's just get to the cliffhanger of this. Prim, who is the main character's little sister, has been chosen to be tribute in the Hunger Games, which is basically just children murdering each other. I mean, obviously she's not going to do it. I expect that she's somehow going to maybe smuggle herself into the competition as her little sister. Also, I immediately have payoff for the two things that I knew about this book. I knew that someone says, may the odds be ever in your favour. And it turns out that is Effie Trinket. She's got a word, she's the escort for District 12. And also, I now know what the deal is with the archery, because Katniss, the main character, is a poacher. She uses bow and arrow to kill wild animals and then sell them on the black market to support her family. This got off to a depressing start. The male tribute has been chosen and it is a boy named Peter, and Katniss seems to have a little bit of history with him, so I expect he'll be a pretty big player. I don't know if there's going to be a romance plot or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, and Katniss volunteered, of course. Our tributes are on a train on the way to the capital where they will get to murder other children. Fun times. But at least they get a hot meal first. We get to know Haymitch a little bit better, who is the drunk old man who's going to be mentoring our hero and her rival. What could possibly go wrong? We've just had the most ridiculous starting ceremony to the Hunger Games, where Katniss and Peter are wheeled around while on fire to represent coal, because District 12 is the coal mining district, and there's already some sort of psychic game going on between Katniss and Peter, because she thinks he's being deliberately nice to her so that he can kill her more easily, and I reckon she's probably right about that, so don't trust the boy. We get to know a little bit more about how the capital looks and runs, and obviously is a complete surveillance state. It's a golden cage kind of situation by the looks of it. They have all of the luxury, but we are introduced to this red-headed, tongueless waitress whom Katniss saw running through her district and then being picked up by a helicopter. Apart from the whole children killing each other for entertainment thing, there's also clearly a wider darkness within the fabric of this dystopian society. So Katniss and Peter go to training where they learn certain skills, including survival skills like fighting and setting traps and camouflage. It all seems a bit silly, but obviously they take it very seriously, considering they're gonna have to either kill or be killed. At the end of the chapter, Katniss has a little bit of a moment in front of the judge-type people as she shoots an arrow at their dinner. She doesn't seem happy about this, but my expectation is that it's going to impress them against all odds, and then they're going to be super into her. As I predicted, the judges were super into her and gave her a really high score, and now she's still not sure about her relationship with Peter, because they're meant to appear as if they're really into each other, but obviously they know that they're gonna have to try and kill each other in the end. This is really messed up. So I've just finished part 1, and I'd like to take this opportunity to reflect a little bit on what we have learned so far. So Peter is either pretending or actually having a romantic interest in Katniss. I think he's really sly. I do think that he is just playing it up in order to get her on his side when they're fighting, because he knows that she's the stronger fighter. I really like Katniss as a main character. What I like about her the most is her confidence. A lot of the time in young adult fiction, we have female characters who are just a little bit insecure, who are not quite sure about themselves, but Katniss has none of that. She's very confident in her skills and her abilities. She's also confident in her weaknesses, mainly her rudeness and her slightly cold heart, which is something I can a little bit identify with. This chapter ends with the interviews, and I just think that the whole aspect of entertainment in this kind of killing game is the most chilling and also the most unique part about this. Just the idea of basically having a gladiator type fight in which children are set up against each other is such an interesting premise to this book, and I'm very excited to see where this leads to. My prediction is that obviously Katniss is going to survive this. I don't think it's going to be as easy as her killing Peter. I think there might be a moment maybe where she has the opportunity to kill Peter, and then they decide to go sideways. They decide to do something a bit different. Definitely a good start to the book so far. This was quite a long chapter, which started right after that interview with Katniss being irritated that Peter had made her the object of his adoration in his interview. And this is very clearly her rebelling against the idea of being objectified. Though at the same time she recognized the advantages of being objectified. In this case, that it could get her some sponsors. Now, I don't quite understand what these sponsors do, but I expect that they will somehow give her an advantage during the actual fighting bit of the Hunger Games. And the chapter ends with her being released into the arena, into this outside space in which she's supposed to murder some other children. Katniss has survived her first day out in the arena, and she's done all right for herself. She fled. She didn't get the bow and arrow. She's now just overheard a group of tributes that have banded together, and Peter is one of them. Told you he was dodgy. The second day ends on a bit of a cliffhanger with a wall of fire descending on Katniss. This wasn't a particularly interesting chapter. Basically, she's just looking for water, and then she found some water. Good on her. Katniss has escaped a fire, and she burned her leg, and now she's up a tree where she's been found by the career tributes and also Peter, filthy traitor. Right at the end of the chapter, she sees Rue, who's the little 12-year-old girl from District 11, who reminds her of her little sister. So that will be interesting to see if there's going to be some sort of alliance between them, or if one of them will end up killing the other, which is what I suspect is going to happen. This was a rather confusing chapter. Katniss sets a nest of crazy genetically mutated wasps onto the career tributes, killing some of them, and then Peter shows up, and she says he saved her life, but really he just didn't impale her with a spear, which I guess is nice of him. Rue has helped Katniss out by giving her the clue about the wasps. Very confusing, all of it. Minerva finds it very confusing too. Katniss has just teamed up with Rue, who is the 12-year-old girl who reminds her of her sister. Oh, this is going to go wrong. Rue seems like a sweet girl. I don't think she's evil, but it just seems wrong to try and make friends in a situation where you know that one of you will have to die, possibly at the hand of the other. Katniss and Rue plan and execute their destruction of the career tribute's food supplies, which is rather clever. And we also learn that Peter has been split from the careers, and that one of them wounded him, and that he's possibly near his death. So I expect we'll hear from him next. So Rue's just been killed, possibly? I hope not. I'm not ready for this. Rue is really dead, which is heartbreaking. Oh, why did she have to kill off the 12-year-old? I mean, I guess the way that this book is going, everyone's gonna die. It's kind of the point of this tournament, if you want to call it that, this massacre. However, right at the end of the chapter, the announcer says that 2 people from the same district can now win. Huh. Katniss found Peter. I find it a little bit hard to believe that he's been lying in the mud, covered himself in leaves, and then just survived for several days. But alright, let's just accept that. And they have now teamed up. And at the end, Katniss kisses him. Yeah, I'm not keen on that as a romance thing. I mean, I know that for the moment, at least she is just playing up the romance part in order to give them an advantage in the fight. But I suspect there's going to be a real romantic connection at some point in the book, and I'm just not that into them as a couple. This has taken quite an interesting twist. Peter is getting in the way because he wants to stop Katniss from going and getting the pack of supplies that she needs to basically save him from dying from blood poisoning. So she's just straight up knocked him out with a sleep syrup that was sent as a gift from the sponsors. And now he's going to be out cold for a day. I'm sure he'll appreciate that though in the end. Things are really happening now. Katniss managed to retrieve the backpack. The guy from District 11 let her go instead of smashing her head in with a rock. However, he did smash Clove's head in with a rock. There's way too much smashing people's heads in with rocks for my taste. We got another reminder that there is a romance plot here, and Katniss seems to be developing feelings for Peter, and it looks like him talking about how he was into her since he was 5 is not entirely a lie. So I guess it's all going well. I'm still not keen on the romance in this, but couldn't be avoided, could it? Things are getting serious now. Only 4 of them left, 3 by the end of the chapter. The girl whom they nicknamed Foxface accidentally ate some poisoned berries that Peter was going to eat. This boy seems rather stupid. I think he's a liability, but I'm sure he'll do something heroic near the end to warrant the affection that Katniss is starting to develop for him. Getting ready for the showdown. Only 3 of them left, and the game makers, or whatever they're called, have driven them to the lake by draining all of the water out of all of the ponds and streams. The chapter ends on the cliffhanger of Cato running towards them, being pursued by a herd of who knows what. Our heroes are pursued by some crazy mutation werewolves who seem to be made up of the body parts of the people who have died, because that is seriously messed up. And then after a long fight, Cato dies. Katniss shoots an arrow through his head, kind of just as a last blow of mercy, and then, not entirely unaccepted, the game makers say, "Oh, sorry, you still have to kind of kill each other." Katniss almost shoots Peter, he throws his weapon away, and then they decide to commit suicide together, and just at that point, they are, of course, rescued by the Capitol, because they don't want a Romeo and Juliet type suicide, they want some real winners there. Ooh, that was a showdown, alright. Katniss is back in the safety of the Capitol, although Haymitch has just managed to tell her that actually the government is absolutely furious at her and Peter's trick. So she might be in more danger now than she was before. However, there's only 1 chapter left of this book. I guess this is not something that is going to be resolved in this novel. Ooh, I have a lot of thoughts. First of all, I like the direction that they did take with the romance in the end, because Katniss is very confused. She knows that until this point she's been pretending basically to fall in love with this boy in order to survive, but now that she no longer has to do that, she's not quite sure what she actually feels about him, whereas he seems genuinely hurt that she has been pretending. That has taken a more subtle direction than I was expecting from the start. I also do like the ending in that she's returning to her home now, but she knows that she's going to be watched. She knows that she's in danger, and she knows that there is a seed of rebellion in her. Overall, I enjoyed this book quite a lot. It's very easy to read. It's a very naturally flowing story. For my taste, there was a little bit too much action, a little bit too much, you know, smashing heads in with stones, and not quite enough of the things that I enjoy about a book, like the characterization and the world building. Don't get me wrong, there was plenty of that in there, but I'm someone who prefers very slow-paced, very introspective books. However, I know that this is the beginning of a series. I'm not even sure how many books are in this series. It's either a trilogy or a quad or a 4-part series, and I'm sure to read the sequel at some point. I don't feel the need to pick it up immediately and continue with this story straight away, but I'm definitely going to read the second part at some point and see where the story takes me. I'm kind of hoping that in the future we'll get to see a little bit more of life in the districts, definitely in District 12, and maybe we'll get to explore the other districts at some point, because really it's a very intriguing dystopian world and I'd like to see more of it. Overall, really great book. It's probably going to be a 4-star read for me, 4 out of 5. So I'm very pleased that I picked this up and gave it a go. And I'm only, 10 years too late? I got there in the end. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.